this is really thrilling to be here. And I feel I want to steal a line from my friend Owen Gingerich, who often says that he has been a victim of anniversaries, because the idea for this book came from the 500th anniversary of Copernicus's birth. I brought show and tell. In February 1973, Copernicus was the cover story in Sky and Telescope, when Sky and Telescope cost 90 cents. And inside was an article by Edward Rosen that explained Copernicus's story and how he had come up with his idea for an alternate universe when he was a relatively young man. And he wrote to some colleagues about it and said that he would be at work on a big book that would explain the whole idea. And people waited, and the book never appeared. And then when he was in his mid-60s and seemingly had given up any hope of publishing this book, a young man came to see him and talked him into doing what he'd avoided doing for a lifetime. And that really fascinated me. And I thought it would make a great play, because everybody knew that this meeting had taken place, but of course no one knew what they had said to each other. And this was 1973. I thought about it for a while, and the idea flattened me. I couldn't imagine how to write a play, so I gave it up. But I never quite forgot about it. So, of course, you all know Copernicus is the person who turned the universe inside out. And today we feel, gee, everybody knows that. Every child knows that the Earth goes around the sun. But, of course, they know that because they've been told. Figuring it out in the first place was really not as obvious as we like to think. He had a nice dark sky. You heard he had no telescope. But as I've heard it said, there's a lot you can figure out with a pencil attached to a brain. Here he is. This is the iconic image. Copernicus lived in the Kingdom of Poland. He was a German-speaking resident of the Kingdom of Poland. And he was orphaned at an early age, but his mother's brother was the bishop of a diocese and took over the education of Copernicus and his brother and set them up to have lucrative careers in the church, and also had them educated. So Copernicus went to his uncle's alma mater, the Jagiellonian University in Krakow, and this statue of him is on that campus, and you can see, even as a student, he was interested in astronomy. And there's actually proof of that. I'm going to show you a photograph that Owen Gingerich took of Copernicus's library. These are all the books that he owned, and there is a book that he created out of tracts that he bought as a student and had bound together, and it still exists. And this book in the foreground is the calendar of eclipses. And it was a book that Copernicus referred to many times. He never saw a total solar eclipse, but he saw numerous lunar eclipses, and he made notes about his observations in this copy. He was, of course, trained in astrology, like all good mathematicians of his time. And it is not known what Copernicus thought about astrology because he never wrote anything about it. And in modern times, we like to think that he thought it was just a bunch of nonsense. But he certainly came up in a culture of astrology. And why else would he have been so interested in the planets if he hadn't been thinking from time to time about what they might bode for a person's future? I always show this picture when I talk about Copernicus, even when Owen Gingerich is not in the audience, especially when he's not here, to say that his research, his tracking down of all the extant copies of Copernicus's book has really informed the modern public of how important the book was. Arthur Koestler, in his book, The Sleepwalkers, had dismissed Copernicus, said it was a big, boring book, nobody read it. And for Copernicus's anniversary, Professor Gingerich had been thinking that maybe at least 9 or 10 people that he could think of had probably read it, and you knew who they were. And he happened to be in Edinburgh and visited the library at the observatory to look at their first edition Copernicus and discovered that it was completely annotated throughout. And he thought, what are the odds, if nobody read it, that the first copy I look at has been not only read but studied? So this started him on his great Copernicus chase, which has taken him around the world, and maybe you'll have questions for him later. And when he was writing up his adventures for this wonderful book he wrote called The Book Nobody Read, you have to be brave to title your book, The Book Nobody Read. And he asked me to read the manuscript before publication. And it was in reading that manuscript that I got re-excited about Copernicus and determined I could learn how to write a play. And so I set about to do that. And I did a lot of research. I went to Poland a couple of times. Couldn't go back in time to Poland, but did the best I could. I visited his birthplace museum in Torun. This woman is she was at the time of my visit, the curator of the museum. And I ask you, has she's been spending maybe too much time looking at that portrait. But the wonderful cathedral complex where he lived and worked, he became a canon of the Catholic Church thanks to his uncle's influence. He was not a priest, but he was a church administrator. And he lived in this complex. This is the Gateway Inn. This is the cathedral. He had his own altar in the cathedral. He couldn't really celebrate Mass on his own because he hadn't taken higher orders, but he had an altar nevertheless. He also had a tower in the cathedral wall. So he had a house outside the walls, but these were dangerous times. And the Knights of the Teutonic Order would periodically attack, and the canons would come inside the walled community, and they had these rooms where they could stay. And now, if you visit, they have the rooms set up as though it had been his study. And, of course, Copernicus was a contemporary of Martin Luther. And the new religion was so popular that several bishops of the Catholic diocese in Copernicus's region converted to the new faith. And Copernicus's bishop, his uncle had died by this point, but the current bishop at the time of the visit from the young scholar was so paranoid about the influence of the Lutherans that he banished them all. He made Lutheranism a crime in the diocese. And the visitor was not only a Lutheran, but was a professor at Wittenberg, at Martin Luther's own university. So he was, in effect, an illegal alien. And somehow Copernicus managed to shelter him for 2 years until they got the book into publishable form, and then he took it to Nuremberg to be printed. So his idea probably filtered out to the world of scholars around 1510. And this map is from 1533. And if you look at Antarctica and the Arctic region, you'll see there are little crank handles coming out of the globe, and little angels just turning the crank handles. So the idea was out that maybe the Earth really did turn. And I offer this picture of Georg Joachim Rheticus, Copernicus's visitor. This is obviously a modern picture. This is actually a theater student in England who created for himself a Rheticus costume. And he probably looked like that. The coloring seems about right. The age is right. He was 25 years old. And there are no images of Rheticus. There are portraits or busts of all the other people in the Copernicus story, but not of Rheticus. Sometimes you can Google him and a couple of images turn up, but one of those images is actually King James, and the other one I've not been able to identify. So here's another wonderful image of the cathedral in what is today called Frombork, but in Copernicus's time was Frauenburg, the city of Our Lady. And tonight, Professor Gingerich has volunteered to read a couple of scenes with me from the play. So he is, of course, going to be Copernicus. And I am going to be Rheticus. And to prepare you a little bit, in the first scene, Rheticus has arrived, and Copernicus immediately tries to get rid of him because he's Lutheran, and it's trouble. And he knows he'll be in trouble. But one thing and another happens, they wind up talking, and then it's daylight, and he can't really send him away in the daylight. So he takes him up to his tower room to hide him for the day, with the idea that he'll send him away that night. And in the room is a model that Copernicus built. And so if you can imagine, remember in the picture of him in the statue in Krakow, he's holding a little armillary sphere. Well, picture something much bigger than that, but something like that. So may I invite Owen Gingerich, please, who is wearing an authentic 16th century scholar's robe. Tell me again the page number, 30. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. Where are you taking me, sir?
Only a little farther now.
But where?
Where are you leaving? Here we are. You can stay here.
Here?
This is it.
What is this place?
You'll be safe here.
Is it your observatory?
No.
Not a prison cell, is it?
No. It's a retreat. A safe place. We have rooms like this. When there's danger of an enemy attack, we come here. We stay until it's safe for us to leave.
You really expect me to stay here?
No one will think to look for you here.
For how long?
Just till the night. After sunset, you can go. As soon as it's dark, I'll come and fetch you.
You mean you're not staying with me?
No,
But now we have all day.
I can't stay with you. I have duties.
Please, stay and seize this day with me. Look how God has provided a space of time for us after all. This is our chance to speak as one mathematician to another. These secluded surroundings, you and I could... What is that?
That?
What is it?
Well, it's just something I made.
You built it?
A long time ago.
But what is it? Some kind of observing instrument?
No. It's more like a model, really.
Like in our military sphere?
Something like that.
Only larger.
Yes.
Much larger.
I don't use it anymore.
Why so big?
Well, the person inside needs room to...
There's someone inside it?
Not now.
No, but A person could.
Yes, the person has to sit inside it to get the effect.
And what effect would that be inside?
The sense of the consequences, really, of my theory.
Oh, I see. You sat in there while you were figuring out how to...
No, I stood out here to operate it.
Someone else was inside?
Yes.
So you did have a student before me?
No.
Then who?
I made this for my, for a friend who couldn't grasp the mathematical concepts. Someone who needed a tangible way to visualize the spheres. She...
You certainly went to a lot of trouble.
I suppose I did.
For your friend.
Yes. Well then, you wait here.
Could I try it?
No, I don't think so.
I'd really like to see what it does.
No one's used it for years. I doubt it will work.
Let's try it and see.
There's no need for that. You, of all people, can follow the math.
I was hoping to read your work, sir. I didn't know I could write in it.
Don't touch them.
How do you get in?
Not there. Not like that.
Show me that, please.
Let go of that. It's over here. You climb in through here.
Your friend must have been quite small. There's hardly room to...
Well, maybe you shouldn't.
All right, I'm in. It's very dark in here. I don't see anything.
I'm lighting it now. Give me a moment to...
What?
I said I'm lighting it now. There. Did you see anything?
Good Lord.
You see?
Good heavens. There are stars everywhere, all around. How did you do that?
Now I turn you.
What?
I said I'll turn you around now.
Should I do something?
No. There. There it goes.
God, what's happening? Oh, this is unbelievable.
You see? You see what it does?
Oh, sir, you have reproduced the night. The effect it's spectacular.
Now you see how the device approximates the motions.
It's so lovely, so faithful to the zodiac constellations. I've never seen anything to compare with this. Look, there's the ram, the bull, the twins.
I'm afraid I can't keep this up much longer. Not as strong as I used to be. You'd better come out now.
Oh, my. That was...
Steady there.
I'm still seeing stars.
Let your eyes adjust to the light.
Thank you, Ken, sir.
Did you find it convincing?
Convincing?
Did you?
Convincing of what, sir?
Of the motion.
Oh, most definitely.
Good. Well then.
All the stars moved. I could see them spinning round and round.
No, the stars didn't.
It was wonderful.
That was what you going around, not the stars.
No. I saw the stars turned around me.
You turned in that little seat. That's the only part that moves.
But I didn't feel myself move.
You're not supposed to.
I am quite certain that the seat did not move.
That's just it. That's the point, you see. You think the stars are turning. Really, it's you turning. And once you realize that, you're the one going around, then you make that shift in your perception. See?
I'm not sure I do, no.
The machine gives you a physical appreciation for the way the Earth, by its rotation, makes the stars appear to spin around it. And the planets, too. I tried to build in the planetary effects, the stations and retrogrades, but I had trouble aligning them.
Do you mean to say...
I think those parts must still be around here somewhere.
Oh, no.
What?
You mean, you really do mean to turn the Earth?
You knew that.
But really turn it?
Well, what did you think?
I didn't think you meant to turn it physically.
How else would it turn if not physically?
It would turn theoretically. You know, in a hypothetical way. On paper.
No.
In order... Theoretically. Mathematically. Not...
No, the motion is real. Of course it is.
How could you claim such a thing?
I thought you understood what my work was about. Didn't Schörner explain it to you?
He,
What did he tell you?
I don't think he sees it quite the way you do, sir.
How can that?
He didn't mention anything about a real motion.
Are you sure?
All he said was, no, he didn't say anything about.
You mean he doesn't understand it either?
I think he must not have interpreted it literally. Why would he?
Why?
Why would he leap to that conclusion?
Oh, merciful heavens.
Honestly, sir, I don't think anyone realizes exactly what it is that you have in mind.
Well, what can they think I've been doing all these years?
Even just to use the ideas, the basis for new calculations, which to claim the motion as reality.
Yes.
Look, you and I, we're just standing here. The Earth, it doesn't move.
Yes, it does.
You really believe the Earth is turning?
This is not a question of belief. Professor, I know it turns.
What do you mean you know?
I mean the evidence has convinced me.
What evidence?
Goodness, the time.
You mean the Earth leaves some kind of wake behind it, like a boat?
I'm sorry. I must leave you now.
No, wait a minute.
You must excuse me. I'll come back tonight.
Wait!
They're expecting me in the...
Just because I raise a few questions, you walk away?
Didn't you hear the bells? That's the call to Mass.
Wait, please.
I must get to the cathedral. If I'm not seen at Mass, it will raise too many questions.
Wait. Okay, that's the end of that. So Rheticus, who has been traveling for weeks, this part is true, he took sick as soon as he arrived. So in the play, right at this point, he collapses. And this, of course, spoils Copernicus' plan to get rid of him. And Copernicus, who has been to medical school and is the bishop's personal physician, takes Rheticus down, drags him down into the house to take care of him. So Rheticus is delirious, he's unconscious. There are some other scenes with the other characters in the play. And we're going to pick this up some hours later now when Rheticus comes to. You ready? What happened?
You startled us.
Why didn't you tell me?
You shouldn't be wandering about.
It's dark now. It's dark. You promised you'd tell me when it got dark.
You're ill. Do you remember, Anna? Hiring some of that
Where are my
broth?
Where are my clothes?
You won't be going anywhere tonight. You're still weak. In another day or two, you'll be stronger. Then you can do as you please. But for now, you're in my care.
This is your house. We were in this room.
Here, drink some of this.
But this isn't where we went somewhere else.
Go on, drink. It's good for you.
You put me in that machine. Oh, no.
That's all right.
Now I remember. Oh, no. Oh, no.
You must have been dreaming.
I thought you would save me.
Sometimes fever causes very vivid, frightening dreams.
I thought you could help me. Now what will I do?
You'll be fine.
What will become of me?
Good as new. You'll see.
I came here in good faith.
Yes, I know.
And what do I find? A lunatic. A deluded, a recluse, obsessed with an insane idea.
Get hold of yourself.
I must go. Where are my clothes? Where's my satchel?
You don't need any of that right now.
My horoscopes are in there.
I know how to treat your symptoms without looking at a horoscope.
You don't understand. Where is that satchel?
Calm yourself.
I can recite it all by heart.
What can you recite?
Every house, every aspect, every conjunction and opposition, every indicator of doom.
Don't tell me you believe in that.
It's not as though I have a choice.
You should know better.
If only I could forget what I know.
Why don't you change it then? If you don't like what your horoscope portends, you can reconfigure it. Isn't that right? Reapportion the houses or adjust the presumed time of birth. And then make it say something else, something better, whatever you like.
I'll try that.
Tried all those things, it always comes out the same.
I'm sorry, Professor, I can't help you with your horoscope.
And you call yourself a mathematician.
Exactly. I am a mathematician, not a fortune teller.
The fates of empires depend on the positions of the planets.
No, Professor. The fates of empires depend on the positions of armies on battlefields. The stars do not enter into human affairs.
Tell that to your Pope. Didn't he bring his favorite astrologer to Rome?
Doesn't your Luther denounce the whole practice?
I told you, he knows nothing about mathematics.
Is that what you really came here for? Some new trick of casting your horoscope?
Not just mine, yours, everybody's. Wars, floods, plagues, all the global predictions for the coming year, for years to come. That's what I saw as the fruit of your labors. The long march of history, the rise of Luther, the fall of Islam, the second coming of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
I give you the true order of the planets, the workings of the whole heavenly machinery, with every one of its former kinks hammered out. But all of that is useless to you, unless it provides excuses for every petty human failing.
You think you can just twirl the earth through the heavens oh dear Lord, wait a minute. If the earth moved, then, if the earth moved through the heavens,
It does move.
if the earth moved among the planets, then it would approach them and recede from them, and it would, yes, the motion would magnify the effect of every planetary influence.
No.
That would have to happen as a natural consequence, an enhancement of the influence that each planet exerted on the individual.
The one thing has nothing to do with the other.
How can you be sure? Have you checked for those effects?
No.
Not even in your own chart?
No.
But that would be so easy to do, to compare, say, Mars at opposition with Mars at solar conjunction, and then to...
No.
This is better than I hoped, better than I ever dreamed. Think what it means.
If you want to know the future, you should go slaughter a goat and examine its entrails. Leave the planets out of your predictions.
I think there's really something to it. Let's say, just for argument's sake, that the Earth turns. How fast would it? It has to spin around very fast, right? For the turning to cause day and night?
It is a rapid motion, yes.
How rapid?
You do the math.
All right. The circumference of the Earth is, what, 20,000 miles?
24.
24,000, right. And it would have to make a full rotation every 24 hours.
Not a very difficult calculation.
God, heaven, 1,000 miles an hour?
That's what it must be.
But that can't be. We would feel that.
No, we don't feel it.
We don't feel it because we don't really turn.
We don't feel it because we move along with it, like riding a horse.
When I ride a horse, I feel it.
On a ship then, sailing on a calm sea. You move along, but you don't have any sense of where you're moving.
Yes, I do. I see the shore receding. I feel the breeze in my face.
Oh, go inside the cabin.
It won't work. If the Earth turned as fast as you claim, there would be a gale, like the wind from God, howling and blowing against us all the time.
No, there is no wind.
That's what I'm saying.
There's no wind because the air turns along with the earth.
The air turns.
It's all of a piece, yes. They turn together as one. The earth and the air. And the water, of course.
We could not be moving that fast and not feel anything. It's impossible.
It's turning. All the time, it's turning. And that turning is what makes the sun appear to rise and set and rise again the following day.
No, it can't be. It's impossible.
You think I don't know it? That it sounds crazy? Do you have any idea how long it took me to accept it myself? No, no. against the judgments of centuries to claim something so. So totally at odds with common experience.
Tell me about the other motion around the sun.
It's the same thing. You don't feel it. It's part of you, like breathing.
No, I mean, is it just as fast?
No.
Is it?
No.
Good.
It's faster.
How fast does it go?
Around the sun?
Around the sun, yes.
I don't know.
Oh, come on, tell
I
me.
really don't know. No one knows the actual distance that the Earth would have to go to get all the way around. But it must be in the millions. It must be many millions of miles, which means to go around the sun at least 10 times faster than we spin.
So, 10,000 miles.
Maybe 100 times faster.
100 times 1,000 miles.
Maybe.
That's where it all falls apart.
Why?
Why?
Why does it make more sense for the sun to go around the Earth? The sun stands still as a light for all creation, unmoved, at the center of the universe, the way a king or an emperor rules from his throne. He doesn't hurry himself about from city to city.
But you can't put the sun at the center. It doesn't belong there.
The sun is in his rightful place at the center, governs the speeds of all the planets. He tells each one how fast to run, and they obey. They take their speeds from his command. That's the reason Mercury travels the fastest.
No, the moon. The moon travels the fastest.
Forget the moon. The moon is the one thing that really does circle around the Earth. Mercury goes fastest around the sun because it's the closest, and Saturn the slowest because it's the farthest away. They draw some kind of motive force from the sun's light.
A force?
Yes.
What kind of force?
I don't know. I'm still in the dark on that matter. But it's there. And that's why all our motions are interrelated, all linked together by a golden chain. And you could not alter a single one, even so much as a fraction of an inch, without upsetting all the rest.
The way you talk, it's as though you know God's plan.
Why else would you study mathematics, if not to discover that?
And the stars?
They hold still, the same as the sun. The sphere of the stars can't spin around the Earth every day. It's too big.
I'm trying to see it your way. Really, I am. But if the Earth moves around the sun, shouldn't we see some change in the stars? Wouldn't some of them look, I don't know, closer together sometimes or farther apart? There should be a change from spring to fall that people who paid attention would notice.
You would think that would happen.
I don't know what to think.
But no, you don't see any seasonal differences, because the stars are so much farther away than anyone has imagined. The scale of the universe is all but inconceivable. The distance to the stars is so tremendous that it dwarfs the distance between the Earth and the sun. Compared to the distance from Saturn to the stars, why the distance from the Earth to the sun is negligible.
Negligible?
It shrinks to just a point, really.
You're making this up. It's your own fantasy. The stars get in your way, you just wave them off to some other place.
Don't impose any puny human limits on creation, as though the whole cosmos were just a crystal ball for your own little personal affairs.
In the name of the Creator, then, what is the use of all that empty space between Saturn and the stars?
The use?
Yes.
What is the use of grandeur, of splendor, of glory? Thus vast, I tell you, is the divine handiwork of the one Almighty God.
Thank you so much. I hope you appreciated the costume.
So, one of the things I discovered, that so the play is inside the book, or an earlier version of the play is inside the book. And I thought this was a strange experiment to try. And I would have to be really careful to label the play as my own imagination of what took place. That the rest of the book is nonfiction, straightforward history. And it is very clearly stated in the book. However, I didn't take into account the way people read and the way people remember. And what people remember is that machine. And that question comes up all the time. Did Copernicus really build a machine? No. No, he did not. However, I have lived to see the world machine come. This was in Boulder in the scenery shop. They have actually designed the world machine. It's going to be great. So I'm very excited. One of the ways that Rheticus convinced Copernicus to publish was by publishing his own summary of Copernicus's work. He studied with him for several weeks, and he was able to report back to their mutual mathematician acquaintance, Schörner, in Nuremberg, what he had learned. And the publication of this first account did not cause any major dislocations, so Copernicus was encouraged. And the book was published in Nuremberg in 1543, and shortly after Rheticus left, Copernicus suffered a stroke. And for a while he was able to receive parts of the published book and proofread them and correct them because he held on to his original manuscript. And one of the amazing things about Copernicus's manuscript is that it still exists. This is not it. But it looks just like this. And this is a facsimile copy that was prepared for the 500th anniversary. And I'd just like to pass that around so everybody, it's heavy, everybody can have a look at it. But he held on to his original manuscript. There are no manuscripts of any of Galileo's books. So the book nobody read and its sequelae have shown that copies of On the Revolutions now sell, when they come up at auction, sell for over $2 million. So if that's the price for the book, of which there are more than 600 16th century copies, what would you estimate the original manuscript is worth? So you won't be surprised to hear they keep it in a safe. It doesn't come out very often. Somebody had the brilliant idea to dedicate the book to the Pope. So here's this book. Paul III was the reigning Pope. Here's this book printed in Nuremberg with a dedication to the Pope. It's a most interesting book. And as you may have heard, a preface was inserted into the book while the book was on press that says pretty much, don't take any of this too seriously. It's just another way of thinking about the math. And anyone who expects the truth from astronomy will leave this study a bigger fool than when he entered it. And people have thought that this was the Osiander preface, and a lot of people think that Osiander did Copernicus a terrible disservice by undermining him in that fashion. But at that time, it was generally acknowledged that the only way to discover the true construction of the universe was to experience a divine revelation. And Osiander had actually been in touch with Copernicus before the book came out and tried to convince him to soften his approach and not say that he really knew how the universe is constructed. But Copernicus didn't listen to him. And perhaps that preface protected the book from criticism. Of course, it's a big, but it's 400 pages, and it is mostly spherical geometry. And it's written in Latin. So unless you were not only university educated, but had a specialized education, you would not have been able to read it. You could read the beginning part where he drops the big bombshell, but after that, you would really have been stuck. And that is why the attention of the Inquisition was not drawn to Copernicus's book until much later, about 80 years later, when Galileo started talking about it aloud and in Italian. This was a dangerous situation, and those events, Galileo's pumping for Copernicus, got on the Revolutions listed on the index of prohibited books, and it was listed in a special category, suspended until corrected. So when the corrections were issued about 4 years later, everyone who owned the book was expected to make those corrections in his copy. And of course, Professor Gingerich has seen all these copies, seen how hardly anybody outside of Italy bothered to do anything about the corrections, but that Galileo did make them, and lightly, so that he could still read what was underneath. And what was the nature of these corrections? The last line you heard Copernicus say, "Thus vast, without any question, is the divine handiwork of the one Almighty God." That is one of the lines that got cut by because it suggests that Copernicus knows what the divine handiwork looks like, and he can't know that. So, you may know a few years ago, there was an effort to dig under that beautiful cathedral and find his remains. And sure enough, archaeologists turned up a skull of a 70-year-old man, which was his age at death, and some bones that matched. But then there was still the question, who is it? And they had hoped that Copernicus's sister had descendants to the present day, but there was some problem about getting DNA samples from her descendants. And then one of the astronomers at Edinburgh recalled looking at that calendar of eclipses and noticing that there were hairs in the binding, and thought, well, maybe that would be a clue. Professor Gingerich thought some of those hairs might have been his because he had looked at that book. You know, how were they going to prove anything? However, several of the hairs stood up to DNA analysis and matched a molar in the skull fragment. So that was a definitive diagnosis. And then of course, they had to bury him again. He had a much bigger funeral this time, a state funeral, and he is an iconic figure. You see him everywhere. This happens to be the statue outside of the Adler Planetarium in Chicago, where there are more people of Polish descent than anywhere in the world except in Poland. And he depends how you look at him. He's the great diminisher who took us out of the center. But what is a center really? And if as we are told by astronomers today, that everything we see in the universe, everything that's light, is really only about 4% of what's there, where does that leave us? We are either insignificant or extremely special, depending on how you want to look at it. So, thank you very much. We're ready to take some questions.